And this morning we're on the line with Dr. Keri Lestage, who comes to us from a place called Pittsburgh, Texas. I'm not kidding you. Pittsburgh, Texas. And our conversation is brought to you by Marcus & Mack, a law firm representing injured people. The only difference is it's a small city. It's in Texas. I guess that's two differences, and they spell it differently. Other than that, you're local, huh, Doc?
Yes, I am. Absolutely.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm just lovely. We're dealing with temperature high today of 27 with snow flurries and 50-mile-an-hour winds. So we're having all kinds of fun here today.
Well, we might have something in common other than the snow. We're at 28 and windy here, too. So
really?
It's chilly here. It is, yeah.
Wow. What area of the world is Pittsburgh, Texas?
We are about 2 hours east of Dallas.
Oh.
Tiny little town. Mm-hmm.
Man. Well, it's good to talk with you today, and I love the topic because we complain about smoking a lot around these parts just because it's 20 years ago, probably 30 years ago, certainly, people just said smoking it's the norm. You see it everywhere, and we just have to put up with it. But it's a whole different world now, and smoking is recognized universally as being very bad for your health and very bad for the health around you, of people around you. And now comes this report that says that COVID-19 can actually be transmitted through secondhand smoke. Take me through that a little bit. What's that all about?
Well, it's actually not terribly surprising because we know that airborne viruses, like to hitch a ride on dust particles. And so that's essentially what secondhand smoke is that when a smoker exhales, they're emitting all sorts of particulate from that cigarette. And the virus, especially if they're infected, will hitch a ride on those particles and will travel very, very long distances. So it's not just the water droplets, like if you sneeze or cough, that is a transmission vector, but the dust that's emitted either from a secondhand smoker or even just from the dust around your house, for example, it can ride along. So
a smoker who's carrying the COVID virus with them, coronavirus, they could actually walk through and exit. We had somebody come in who was smoking the other day and took their last puff and inhaled and didn't exhale until they were inside the building, and we could smell it all over the building. And actually, I guess, in a sense, that's a pretty dangerous thing.
It absolutely could be, especially if you've got somebody within your facility that is particularly vulnerable. But hopefully that individual, wouldn't, it's not just about dust and, it's also about understanding sort of your own personal risk and making sure that, whether it's a smoker, whether it's you happen to be in a conference room, having meetings with a bunch of people, I think we have to take a look at what our own personal risk profile looks like and then act accordingly.
The breadth of the studies of COVID-19 and its results, they're going to come at us over the next 5 or even 10 years. We're going to look at 2020, 2021, and 2022, and we're going to see all kinds of numbers that are just going to blow our minds away because it's just amazing what we're seeing already. And I would guess that someone who does what you do would be really anticipating the knowledge that is going to be available in these next few years.
Absolutely. I mean, and I think one of the benefits of that knowledge base is that it's not just with the scientific community. I think that there's going to be the general public is a lot more knowledgeable now about airborne viruses, about respiratory illnesses, and how to protect themselves, which I think is makes sense not just for COVID, but for the flu, for the cold virus. Like, these are things that we can take with us when we're fighting all the different viruses that are, circulating in our communities every year.
Now, you are the Chief Science Officer for BioPlanet International, which works particularly in industrial settings to ensure the safety of the people there. Tell me what your company does and how it goes about its business when dealing with airborne viruses.
Yeah, so we are a manufacturer of electrostatic sprayers, which means that when you spray a disinfectant from our device, it has an electric charge on it. And that electric charge helps drive the disinfectant to the surface. So, and one of the things that makes it really interesting is that electrostatics has been used in dust mitigation in industrial settings, like to be able to prevent explosions and that sort of stuff in industry. So we actually did a study where we, sprayed our particular disinfectant, hypochlorous acid, and we sprayed it in the air using our device. And we were able to show that we could knock out all the airborne virus in the air. So we were pretty excited about that result, and we think that it might be really interesting technology in the future.
Well, that being the case, and waiting for those developments, because we know that it's not stagnant. It's going to get better and better and better. When we think about COVID-19, the variants that have come along since, and the natural fear that is engendered by the speed with which these variants have come along, I would guess that you're going to be awful busy people for quite a while. These variants that have come along do not portend well when it comes to consideration of what's the next virus to come down the road.
That's exactly right. But I think, one of the things that I think is a benefit is that I think we underestimate our own natural immune response. Like Omicron, I don't know about you, but it just ripped through our community like wildfire. Mm-hmm. Now, one of the benefits of that is that because it was a milder illness, we didn't have nearly as much, fatalities. But because there was so much more exposure, I feel like our community is in a much better position than we were in the early 2020s when we didn't know what we were dealing with, and we had no exposure to this virus previously. So I think the community innate immune strength is significantly improved. So I'm actually very optimistic of the future.
Well, we're talking about viruses now, but we could just as easily, when we're considering cigarette smoke, we could be discussing as well carcinogens that are in that secondhand smoke too, could we not?
Absolutely. Anything we've known for years that, smoking, whether you're the smoker or the one standing next to the smoker, it's dangerous for your health and can cause a whole host of health problems. So I think that, anything you do to avoid that is probably wise.
When I was a kid, I would spend a lot of time with my dad, who was a smoker. It was a whole different era. And we'd be tooling along in the old Datsun pickup with the windows up in the middle of the winter, and the smoke would be there, and I'd be breathing that in. So as a kid who is anywhere between the ages of, say, 6 and 12 or 13, that damage that is done from secondhand smoke, does it have the opportunity to heal itself as you get older?
It absolutely does. And in fact, there's been some really fascinating studies around people that have smoked, actual smokers who have used cigarettes for years, that the level of improvement in their lung function has been like orders of magnitude increase in just a few years once they stop smoking. So the body is a pretty resilient machine when it comes to that.
Well, that's awful good news because we're talking about carcinogens and smoke and the other substances that we inhale. And we get items such as, the pollutants in the air just generally around us, depending upon the region in which you live. We have power plants in our neighborhood, and they have been a great benefit for us for many, many years economically. But then you get reports that come out from the American Lung Association and others, and you get things like EPA action days that come from the government telling you about what you're breathing into your lungs. And the truth is that even a nice, clear, bright, sunny day could have some dangers in the air that you're breathing in, and the body has to react to that. Has the body developed the ability to evolve through some of these substances that we're breathing in?
I think that one of the things that makes it difficult, I think the body has a lot of mechanisms that can help flush out a lot of the toxins that we breathe. The problem is that it's not just an acute, occurrence. It's not something that happens maybe once in a while. Like when you are constantly inundating your body with these carcinogens, eventually it will break down. And that's really the tough part, is how often and how much we're being exposed over time.
As we get through the next couple of years and new technologies come out, I want to ask you about what you expect to happen in ways of prevention from people breathing in secondhand smoke, for instance. What is out there and what is in the development stages to help people cope with that?
Honestly, I think it's awareness. I think people need to understand and have a really solid understanding of what the risks are. And I think that the personal choices that people make will start to change. Like I said, I think smoking is a really good example. Like the messaging around how dangerous it is, we've seen the rates of smoking drop, huge amounts versus like when you and I were a kid. And so I think that's the type of thing that we need to do is we have to put the data in the public's hands so that they can make the right choice.
She's Dr. Keri Lestage joining us this morning. Where are we going to learn more about your company, BioPlanet International?
You can find us at the web. It's bioplanet.com. Bio is spelled BYO planet.com. So come check us out.
I appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have
Bye-bye.
a great day. It is the voice of Indiana County, WCCS, 101.1 FM and AM 1160.